My roommate calls my boyfriend our boyfriend. My roommate Cass has been calling my boyfriend Will our boyfriend for 2 months now. At first, I thought it was a joke. Now I'm genuinely scared. Will and I have been dating 6 months. He goes to university 2 hours away but visits every 3 weeks, staying 4 or 5 days. My roommates were fine with it initially. He helps with chores, cooks for everyone, fixes things around the apartment. He's perfect. Then Cass got dumped in September. That's when everything changed. It started small. When Will cooked dinner for me, making extra for roommates out of politeness, Cass would linger in the kitchen. He's so sweet. My ex could never. You're so lucky. She'd stare at him expectantly, like she wanted him to offer something more. When he'd fix something, installing hooks, moving furniture, she'd watch and comment on his muscles. So strong. I need a man like that. Will would get uncomfortable and escape to my room. Then came the our boyfriend comments, first as jokes. Will would bring me coffee and Cass would say, our boyfriend is so thoughtful. Will would help with groceries. Look at our boyfriend being helpful. It's not funny, I told her once. Relax, it's just a joke. We're basically sisters, so we share everything, right? No, we're roommates. We share a refrigerator, not boyfriends. The behavior escalated. She started following us. We use a location sharing app for safety, and whenever Will and I went out, Cass would text immediately. Where are you guys? Can I join? If we didn't respond, she'd just show up. Movies, restaurants, even once on a romantic walk in the park, there was Cass, acting like she'd randomly bumped into us. We started locking my bedroom door because she'd walk in without knocking. Just wanted to say hi to our boyfriend. She'd chirp if we forgot. After midterms, the roommates had a small party. I got drunk and called Will. Cass ripped my phone away. She's much stronger than me, and started talking to him about her sex life. Make sure you hit it deep, she told him, laughing when he went silent. What? Can't handle girl talk about our boyfriend? Will started visiting less. When he did come, he'd barely leave my room. Cass would wait outside my door. I'd hear her breathing sometimes. Last week was the breaking point. Will surprised me for our 6-month anniversary, arriving while I was in class. My roommate Jess texted me. Your boyfriend's here, but something weird is happening. I rushed home to find Cass in my bedroom, wearing my lingerie, sitting on my bed with Will backed against the wall looking terrified. What the hell? Cass stood up slowly, my red lace set looking wrong on her body. I was just showing our boyfriend what he's missing when you're not around. Get out, get out. She smiled. It's my apartment too, and he didn't seem to mind. Did you, Will? I told you to leave me alone, Will said, voice shaking. I was waiting for Kristen and you just came in wearing that. You didn't lock the door. That's basically an invitation. I called our landlord that night, but Cass is on the lease. I can't force her out. I went to campus security, but they said without physical threats, it's a roommate disagreement. 2 days ago, Will told me he couldn't visit anymore. I'm sorry, but she scares me. Last time she had your underwear on. What's next? I understood, but it hurt. Cass was destroying my relationship. Yesterday, I came home to find Cass in my room again, on my laptop. She'd found photos of Will and me, intimate ones we'd taken together. Nothing explicit, but private, personal. Get away from my computer. Our boyfriend looks good in these. I made copies for myself. Hope you don't mind. That's illegal. I'm calling the police. With what proof? They're on my phone now. Could have gotten them anywhere. Maybe Will sent them to me directly. Maybe we have our own thing going. He would never... Who would people believe? The crazy, jealous girlfriend? Or the roommate who just happened to receive some photos? That's when I noticed something else on my laptop screen. My email, open to a draft I didn't write, addressed to Will, breaking up with him, saying horrible things. Cass had written it pretending to be me. Don't worry, I didn't send it. Yet. But I could. I know your password. You really should change it from your birthday. I changed all my passwords that night, put a lock on my bedroom door that only I had the key to. But when I woke up this morning, there was a note under my door. Locks won't stop me from our boyfriend. Check your phone. There was a text sent from my number to Will at 3 a.m. We need to talk. Coming to your place tomorrow. We have something to tell you. K&C, I never sent that text. I was asleep. My phone was next to me all night. Will texted back. Who is C? Why is she coming? Kristen, what's going on? I tried calling him, but he won't answer. Cass is gone, her car missing from the parking lot. It's a 2-hour drive to Will's university. She left 3 hours ago. She's there right now, and I don't know what she's telling him. I'm shaking so badly I can barely hold my phone as I try calling Will again. It goes straight to voicemail for the 4th time. Cass has been at his campus for at least 30 minutes now. I have no idea what she's telling him or what she might do. My hands keep slipping on the screen as I try to dial again. The apartment feels too small suddenly, like the walls are closing in. I pace from the kitchen to the living room and back, checking the location app every few seconds. Cass's dot sits right on top of Will's dorm building, not moving, just sitting there. My chest feels tight and I can't get enough air. What is she saying to him right now? Is she showing him those photos she copied? Is she telling him I sent her there? The fake text said we had something to tell him. Like we're a team. Like we're together in this. I try calling one more time and it goes straight to voicemail again. He's either ignoring my calls or his phone died or Cass did something to it. None of those options make me feel better. Jess comes out of her room, still in her pajamas even though it's almost noon. She finds me pacing in the living room and her eyes go wide when she sees my face. I must look crazy. I feel crazy. I explain what's happening. The words tumbling out so fast I'm not sure they make sense. The fake text. Cass leaving 3 hours ago. Will not answering. Jess's face goes pale as she listens. She sits down on the couch like her legs won't hold her anymore. She admits Cass has been acting even stranger lately, talking about Will constantly and going through my things when I'm at class. My stomach drops. Jess has known this whole time and didn't tell me. She says she's seen Cass standing outside my locked bedroom door just listening. She's heard Cass talking to herself about Will when she thinks no one is home. Last week, Jess caught Cass going through my closet, holding up my clothes and looking at herself in the mirror. Jess thought about saying something but didn't want to cause drama. Drama. Like this isn't already the worst drama possible. I make the decision immediately. I'm driving to Will's university right now, even though it's 2 hours away and I have an exam tomorrow. I don't care about the exam. I need to get to Will before Cass does something worse. Jess offers to come with me for support and I'm so grateful I could cry. I'm too panicked to make this drive alone. My hands are still shaking and I'm not sure I could focus on the road. Jess says she'll drive and I can keep trying to reach Will. She disappears into her room to get dressed and I grab my keys and phone and wallet. I don't pack anything else. I don't think about what we'll do when we get there. I just know I need to go now. We're on the road within 15 minutes. Jess drives while I keep trying to reach Will and checking Cass's location on the app. Cass's phone shows she's stationary at Will's dorm building, which makes my stomach twist with worry about what's happening there. Is she in his room? Is she talking to his roommate? Is she waiting in the lobby? The dot doesn't move, just sits there like a target. I try calling Will again. Voicemail. I try texting. No response. I open the location app again and zoom in on Will's dorm. The dot is right there. Cass is right there. I zoom out and check our location. We're barely 10 miles from our apartment. This drive is going to take forever. Jess merges onto the highway and I watch the mile markers start to count down. 120 miles to go. 2 hours feels like an eternity. Jess starts talking and I realize she's been keeping notes about Cass's behavior because it scared her. She pulls out her phone at a red light and shows me. Dates and times and descriptions. The times Cass stood outside my locked door. The weird comments about sharing everything. The way Cass watched my location obsessively. Jess has pages of notes going back weeks. She says she should have told me sooner but didn't want to cause drama. That word again. Drama. I tell her it's okay, that I missed the signs too, that we both thought Cass was just weird and lonely after her breakup. But looking at Jess's notes, seeing it all written down like evidence, makes it real in a way it wasn't before. This isn't just roommate weirdness. This is something worse, something dangerous. An hour into the drive, I finally get a text from Will. My phone buzzes, and I grab it so fast I almost drop it. The message makes everything inside me freeze. Your roommate is here and she's telling my RA that you sent her to check on me because you're worried about my mental health. This is insane. Where are you? I read it 3 times. Cass is telling people I sent her. She's using that fake text as proof. She's making herself look like the concerned friend and making me look like the worried girlfriend. Or worse, like the controlling girlfriend who sends people to check up on her boyfriend. My hands shake as I type back. I text immediately explaining that Cass sent that message from my phone without permission, and I'm on my way there now. I tell him about waking up to find the text already sent, about Cass leaving 3 hours ago, about how I've been trying to call him. I send the text and watch the screen. 3 dots appear. Will is typing. Then they disappear. Then they appear again. Finally, his response comes through. Cass is acting very calm and reasonable, which is somehow more scary than if she were obviously unstable. That makes my blood run cold. Of course Cass is acting calm. She's good at that. She was calm when she wore my underwear. She was calm when she copied my photos. She's always calm when she does the most messed up things. That's what makes her so frightening. Jess suggests we stop at a gas station to document everything on my phone. Screenshots of Cass's location history, the fake text she sent, the timeline of behavior that's been getting worse. She says we need evidence in case this becomes a legal issue. Legal issue. I hadn't even thought about that. But Jess is right. We pull off at the next exit and park at a gas station. I start taking screenshots while Jess goes inside to get us coffee. I screenshot Cass's location from this morning showing her at Will's campus. I screenshot the fake text with the timestamp showing 3 in the morning. I screenshot old texts where Cass called Will our boyfriend. I screenshot everything I can think of. My photo gallery fills up with evidence. When Jess comes back with coffee, she helps me organize it into a folder. We label it with today's date, just in case. We arrive at Will's campus just as the sun is setting. The sky is orange and pink and pretty, but I barely notice. My hands are shaking again as we park outside his dorm. Will texts that Cass is in the common area talking to his roommate Theodore, acting like she's my official representative here to discuss our relationship. Official representative. Like I gave her permission. Like I sent her here. I feel sick. Jess puts her hand on my arm and asks if I'm ready. I'm not ready. But we get out of the car anyway. I walk into the dorm with Jess right behind me. The common area is to the left through glass doors. I spot Cass immediately sitting on a couch with a guy who must be Theodore. They're laughing like they're old friends. Cass has her hair down and she's wearing makeup and a nice sweater. She looks normal. She looks friendly. Theodore is smiling at something she said. When Cass sees me walk in, her whole face changes. The friendly smile disappears. Her expression shifts to something cold and mean that I've never seen before. She stands up slowly, still looking at me. Theodore notices the change and looks confused. Cass's eyes are hard and her mouth is set in a thin line. She doesn't look scared or caught. She looks angry that I showed up. Her voice gets loud and carries across the room. Several students sitting at tables with their laptops look up from their screens. She stands slowly and her smile is different now, sharper. I'm so glad you finally made it, Kristen. We need to have an honest conversation with Will, don't we? The way she says we makes it sound like we're a team, like we planned this together. More heads turn. A girl near the window whispers to her friend. My face gets hot and I can feel everyone watching us now. There is no we. You need to leave right now. Nobody invited you here. My voice shakes, but I keep it steady enough. Cass tilts her head like I said something funny. Will seemed really happy to see me when I got here. We had a great talk about all the problems you've been having. He understands now. She looks at Will when she says it. Will's face goes red and he steps back from her. He looks uncomfortable, almost sick. Theodore glances between them, looking confused. Will moves forward and stands next to me. I asked you to leave about 6 times, Cass. You kept saying you were worried about Kristen and needed to make sure she was okay. You wouldn't go. His voice is firm, but I can hear the strain in it. Theodore nods and crosses his arms. She showed up maybe an hour ago. I thought she was your friend at first because she acted normal, but every time we asked her to leave, she changed the subject or said she needed 5 more minutes. Theodore's friendly smile from earlier is completely gone now. He's looking at Cass differently, more carefully. Jess pulls her phone out and holds it up so Theodore can see the screen. She swipes through screenshots while she talks. Cass has been following them for months. She uses their location app to show up wherever they go. She goes into Kristen's room without permission. She sent a fake text from Kristen's phone at 3 in the morning. Jess keeps swiping and shows him more. Photos of the weird texts. The timeline of Cass showing up at restaurants and movies. Theodore's eyes get wider as he scrolls through the evidence. His whole body language shifts. He steps away from Cass slightly and looks at her like he's seeing someone completely different. Cass's calm face cracks. Her jaw gets tight and her eyes narrow. Everyone is making this into such a huge deal. I just wanted Will to know how much Kristen complains about him when he's not around. She's always saying she wishes he went to the school here instead of 2 hours away. She thinks you're clingy. She looks right at Will when she says it. She actually sent me here to break up with you because she's too scared to do it herself. Her voice gets louder and sharper with each word. Will's face goes pale. I grab my phone and pull up my email. My hands are shaking so much it takes me 3 tries to find the right folder. I turn the screen toward Will. Look at this. Cass wrote this on my laptop pretending to be me. I never wrote any of this. The draft email is still there with all those horrible things about Will, things I would never say. Will takes my phone and reads it. His expression changes from hurt to confused to angry in about 10 seconds. He looks up at Cass. You wrote this? You actually sat at her computer and wrote a fake breakup email? His voice is different now, harder. Theodore reads over his shoulder and his mouth drops open. Someone must have called the residential advisor because she comes through the glass doors looking serious. She's a tall woman with dark hair pulled back and she's wearing a staff badge. What's going on here? I got a report of a disturbance. I start to explain, but my words come out jumbled. Jess jumps in and shows the RA her phone with all the screenshots. Will shows her the fake email. Theodore confirms that Cass refused to leave when asked multiple times. The RA's face gets stern as she listens. She turns to Cass. You need to leave this building immediately. You're not a student here and you're clearly unwelcome. Cass crosses her arms. I have every right to visit a friend's campus. This is a public university. Her voice gets louder. You can't make me leave for having a conversation. The RA pulls out her radio. Campus security shows up fast, 2 officers in uniform. The RA explains the situation while showing them Jess's phone. One officer asks Cass to come with them outside. Cass's face turns red and she starts yelling. This is insane! Kristen is turning everyone against me because she can't handle that Will likes me better. People in the common area are definitely staring now, some filming on their phones. You're all going to regret this! Every single one of you! She points at me as the security guard guides her toward the door. She jerks her arm away from him but walks toward the exit. You ruined everything, Kristen. Everything. Her voice echoes through the common area as she pushes through the glass doors. We all follow outside and watch her storm across the parking lot to her car. The security guard follows at a distance to make sure she actually leaves. She gets in her car and slams the door so hard I can hear it from where we're standing. Her tires squeal when she pulls out. The security guard comes back and takes statements from all of us. He writes everything down in a small notebook. Will's hands shake while he talks. He describes how Cass showed up acting concerned and friendly, asking about his classes and his roommates. Then she started mentioning things she shouldn't know. His work schedule at the campus library, the name of his biology professor, what time he usually goes to the gym. She knew my whole routine, things Kristen never told her because we barely talk about that stuff. She must have been reading our messages. His voice breaks a little. The security guard writes faster. We finally go back inside and up to Will's room. Theodore says he's going to give us privacy and heads to the library. Will sits on his bed and puts his head in his hands. He's shaking all over. I sit next to him and he leans against me. She sat right there on the couch and told me she was worried about you. That you'd been crying a lot and talking about breaking up with me. She said you sent her to check on me because you were too upset to come yourself. He looks up at me. I almost believed her at first. She sounded so genuine. Then she started talking about my schedule and I realized something was really wrong. She knew I had a chemistry lab on Tuesdays and Thursdays. She knew I eat lunch at the dining hall near the science building. How would she know that? His eyes are wet. My stomach drops. I pull out my phone and start going through my settings. I need to change every single password right now. Email, social media, everything. Will moves closer and helps me. We go through account after account. My email shows login history and my blood runs cold. There are logins from Cass's IP address going back 3 weeks. She's been reading my emails for almost a month. Every message I sent to Will. Every conversation with my sister. Every private thing I wrote to Jess complaining about the situation. Will finds more evidence in my cloud storage. Cass logged in there too and looked through my photos. The private ones. The ones just for me and Will. She's been in everything, I say. My voice sounds far away. I pull up my email app and scroll through the login history. There are access points from locations I've never been, at times when I was in class or asleep. Cass has been reading everything for weeks. Will opens my photo storage and we find the same pattern. She looked through my private pictures over and over, downloading copies to her own device. My hands shake so badly I almost drop my phone. Will takes it from me and keeps checking. We go through my social media accounts and find she's been logged in there too, reading my private messages with friends and family. She knows everything about my life, every conversation, every plan, every private thought I shared with people I trusted. Theodore comes back from the library and knocks on the door. Will lets him in, and Theodore looks at both of us sitting on the bed surrounded by phones and laptops. We show him what we found, and his face gets serious. He pulls out his own phone and starts taking pictures of the login histories and access records. He says we need to document everything before Cass has a chance to cover her tracks or delete evidence. Jess texts asking if we're okay, and I tell her what we discovered. She responds immediately that she's been feeling watched lately too, like someone was going through her things when she wasn't home. She says she's going to check her own accounts now. Will finds a document in my cloud storage that I didn't create. It's a detailed list about him with his class schedule written out by day and time. His work shifts at the campus library, the names of his friends and roommates, places he goes regularly like the gym and dining hall, his favorite coffee shop and what he usually orders. The document has dates going back almost 2 months, right after Cass got dumped. She's been building a file on him this whole time, learning his patterns and routines like she was planning something. Theodore reads over Will's shoulder and says, "This is serious stalking behavior, not just a roommate being weird or jealous." He suggests we go to campus police right away because this level of surveillance and planning is dangerous. It's almost midnight, but I'm too scared to wait until morning. What if Cass comes back here tonight? What if she does something worse now that she knows we're on to her? Theodore says we can crash in the common area on the couches if we want to stay on campus where there are people around and security. Will agrees immediately, and Jess texts that she's staying at her girlfriend's place tonight because she doesn't feel safe at the apartment alone. We gather our phones and laptops with all the evidence we found. Theodore leads us downstairs to the common area where a few other students are studying late. The space feels safer with other people around, and a security guard who walks through every hour. Will and I sit together on one couch while Jess takes the other one. Theodore brings us blankets from his room and bottles of water. Nobody can sleep. We keep checking our phones and looking at the evidence we collected. Will finally starts talking about how scared he's been since the lingerie incident. He says he didn't want to make me choose between him and my living situation because he knew I couldn't afford to break my lease or move out suddenly. He's been having trouble sleeping and focusing on his classes because he keeps thinking about Cass showing up at his door or following him around campus. He feels guilty for not being more direct about how frightened he was, but he didn't want me to think he was overreacting or being dramatic. I tell him he wasn't overreacting at all, and I should have taken the situation more seriously from the start. We talk for hours about all the warning signs we both ignored or explained away. The breathing outside my door, the constant location checking, the way Cass inserted herself into every part of our relationship, how she always knew where we were and what we were doing. Will says he started avoiding visiting me not because he didn't want to see me, but because he was genuinely afraid of what Cass might do next. Theodore falls asleep in a chair nearby, but Will and I stay awake watching the sun come up through the windows. Morning light fills the common area and other students start moving around, heading to early classes or the dining hall. I feel exhausted but wired with anxiety about what comes next. I pull out my phone and call my older sister Heidi, because I need advice from someone outside this mess who can think clearly. She answers on the second ring, sounding worried because I never call this early. I explain everything that happened yesterday and last night, about Cass driving here uninvited and the evidence we found of her stalking behavior. Heidi listens without interrupting, and when I finish, she's quiet for a moment. Then she says this behavior pattern matches stalking cases she's read about in her psychology grad program. She explains that stalkers often escalate when their target tries to establish boundaries or pull away. The surveillance and information gathering are signs of obsessive behavior that typically gets worse without intervention. She asks if I've contacted police yet, and I tell her we're planning to go this morning. Heidi says she's driving down right now and she'll be here in a few hours. She wants to review everything with us and help figure out the next steps. She tells me not to go back to the apartment alone and to stay somewhere public with other people around until she gets here. I feel relief hearing her voice and knowing she's coming to help. Will wakes up Jess and we all get coffee from the campus cafe. We sit at a table near the windows where we can see people walking by outside. Theodore joins us and we go through all the evidence again, making sure we have screenshots and documentation of everything. Heidi arrives around noon looking tired from the drive but focused. She hugs me tight and then sits down with us at the table. We show her everything we found on my accounts and the detailed file Cass made about Will. Heidi pulls out a notebook and starts writing down dates and details, organizing the information into a timeline. She explains that stalking cases require clear documentation of escalating behavior over time. One incident might seem minor, but a pattern shows intent and obsession. She points out how Cass's actions have gotten progressively more invasive and bold, from comments to following us to breaking into my accounts and showing up uninvited at Will's campus. Heidi says the fact that Cass created a detailed surveillance file on Will demonstrates planning and premeditation, which courts take seriously. She suggests we go to campus police this afternoon and file a formal report. She'll come with us and help make sure we include all the important details. Will looks nervous but agrees. Theodore says he'll come too as a witness since he saw Cass refuse to leave yesterday and heard her making threats. We walk across campus to the police department in the administration building. Officer Flynn O'Brien meets with us in a small interview room. He's younger than I expected, maybe in his 30s, with a calm, professional manner that makes me feel slightly less anxious. I start explaining the situation from the beginning while Heidi takes notes to make sure I don't forget anything important. Officer O'Brien listens carefully and asks questions about specific dates and times. He has me show him the login histories and the surveillance document Cass created. His expression gets more serious as he reviews the evidence on my phone. Theodore describes what happened yesterday when Cass showed up and refused to leave despite being asked multiple times. Will explains how frightened he's been and how Cass's behavior has affected his ability to function normally. Officer O'Brien writes everything down in a detailed report. When we finish, he explains that while one incident might not be enough for criminal charges, the documented pattern of behavior over 2 months could support a restraining order. He says stalking cases are hard to prosecute, but the evidence we have is strong, especially the digital footprint showing unauthorized access to my accounts and the surveillance file. He emphasizes that we need to document every interaction with Cass from now on, save every text, email, and message. Keep a log of when and where she shows up. Take photos or videos if possible. The more evidence we have of continued harassment, the stronger the case becomes. He warns us that restraining orders don't always stop stalkers, and sometimes the attempt to establish legal boundaries makes them escalate further. Officer O'Brien makes copies of all our evidence and says he'll contact the police department at my campus to coordinate since Cass and I live in the same jurisdiction. He gives me his direct number and tells me to call immediately if Cass tries to contact me or shows up anywhere. He also suggests I talk to campus housing about my living situation, because continuing to share an apartment with someone exhibiting this behavior isn't safe. We leave the police station, and I feel both relieved that we reported everything and terrified about what happens next. Heidi puts her arm around my shoulders and says I did the right thing, that getting authorities involved was necessary even though it's scary. Will looks exhausted and worried. I realize I have to go back to my apartment eventually because I have classes tomorrow and all my things are there. I can't just abandon my life because of Cass. Jess texts that she checked her apartment and Cass hasn't been back yet, but some of her stuff is moved around. Heidi insists she's coming back to the apartment with me and staying for a few days to make sure I'm safe. Will wants to come too, but he has classes he can't miss. We agree he'll stay at his campus for now and will video call every night. The drive back feels long even though it's only 2 hours. Jess meets us at the apartment parking lot and we all go in together. The apartment feels different now, like a place that used to be home but isn't anymore. Cass's bedroom door is closed, but I can see light under it, which means she came back at some point. Jess points out that things in the living room are slightly rearranged. A picture frame is moved. The TV remote is in a different spot. Small changes that show someone was here going through our space. We go to my room and I see immediately that someone's been inside even though I locked it. The lock on my door is one of those basic push-button kinds that you can pick with a paperclip. My dresser drawers are open slightly. Papers on my desk are shuffled. My closet door isn't closed all the way. I start checking what's missing and my stomach drops. The sweater Will gave me for my birthday is gone. Photos of us together that I kept in a box are missing. My journal where I wrote about our relationship and private thoughts is nowhere to be found. Cass took pieces of my life with Will, like she's collecting evidence of our relationship or trying to insert herself into it by possessing things that belong to us. Jess finds that some of her things are missing too. A scarf and a book she lent me. Small items that Cass could claim were borrowed or shared. The violation feels worse than before because now Cass isn't just watching or following. She's taking physical pieces of my life and privacy. Heidi immediately says we're changing the lock on my bedroom door right now. We drive to a hardware store and buy a proper lock that requires a key, not just a button you can pick. Heidi installs it herself while I watch, and she gives me the only 2 keys. One for me and one for Jess in case of emergency. We also set up my phone to automatically back up all photos and messages to a cloud account that Cass doesn't know exists. Heidi creates the account using her own email, so there's no way Cass can find it or access it even if she gets into my devices again. We change every password I have to long random strings that Heidi writes down and keeps in her own phone. She sets up 2-factor authentication on everything, so even if Cass somehow gets my passwords, she can't log in without the codes that come to my phone. I sleep with my phone on the nightstand and my door locked with the new key only I have. Heidi is in the living room on the couch and Jess is in her room. Around midnight, I hear footsteps in the hallway outside my door. Heavy footsteps that stop right at my door. Then the pounding starts. Cass slams her fists against my door so hard the frame shakes. She yells that I'm being ridiculous and dramatic. She says she just wanted to borrow some things and I need to stop acting like a victim. The pounding gets louder and I can hear her trying the doorknob over and over. She screams that this is her apartment too and I can't lock her out. I grab my phone and text Heidi that Cass is outside my door. Within seconds, I hear Heidi's voice in the hallway telling Cass to stop and go to her room. Cass yells back that Heidi has no right to be here and needs to mind her own business. The pounding continues and now Cass is kicking the door. I hear Heidi on the phone with someone and she says the address clearly. She's calling the police. Cass must hear this too because she screams that I'm going to regret this and that I'm turning everyone against her over nothing. The kicking stops, but I can hear her breathing on the other side of the door. Heavy, angry breaths. Jess comes out of her room and I hear her telling Cass to calm down. Cass tells Jess to shut up and that she's a traitor too. The next 15 minutes feel like hours. I stay in my room with my door locked and listen to Cass pacing in the hallway. She mutters things I can't quite hear. Finally, I hear new voices. Deep official voices asking questions. Heidi lets the police officers inside and I hear everything change. Cass's voice becomes soft and shaky. She sounds like she's crying. She tells the officers she's just worried about me and wanted to make sure I'm okay. She says I've been acting strange lately and she's concerned. One officer asks me to come out and I unlock my door with shaking hands. There are 2 officers in uniform standing in our living room. Cass is sitting on the couch with tears on her face, looking small and scared. She looks at me with wet eyes and says she's sorry for scaring me. The officers ask to speak with each of us separately. One takes Cass into her room while the other talks to me and Heidi in my room. I show him everything on my phone. The police report from Will's campus. The screenshots of Cass's location following us. The fake text she sent from my phone. The photos of my ransacked room. Jess comes in and shows her phone too with all the notes she took. Dates and times of Cass's behavior. The officer writes everything down in a small notebook. He looks at the police report from Will's campus and nods slowly. He says he recognizes this pattern. He's seen it before in stalking cases. He says the behavior is escalating and I should seriously think about getting a restraining order. He explains what that means and how to file for one. The The other officer comes back from talking to Cass and they step into the hallway to discuss. I can hear them talking in low voices. They come back and tell Cass she needs to leave me alone. They give her an official warning. Cass nods and says she understands. She apologizes again. The officers leave and the apartment becomes so quiet I can hear the refrigerator humming. Heidi makes tea and we sit in my room with the door locked. I can hear Cass in her room on the phone. Her voice carries through the thin walls. She's talking to someone and getting louder. She says I'm trying to steal her boyfriend. She says I'm turning everyone against her. She says I'm making up lies to get her in trouble. Her voice gets higher and more upset. She says Will loves her and I'm just jealous. I look at Heidi and she shakes her head. We don't sleep much that night. The next morning, I have an appointment with a campus counselor that Heidi set up for me. Her name is Violet Shin, and she works in the Student Health Center in an office with soft lighting and comfortable chairs. I tell her everything that's happened and she listens without interrupting. When I finish, she says what Cass is doing is serious. She uses words like obsessive attachment and erotomania. She explains that some people develop intense fixations on others who are unavailable. She says it's not about love, but about control and fantasy. She says stalkers often believe their target secretly wants them despite clear rejection. Violet helps me make a safety plan. She writes everything down on a printed form. She says I should vary my routes to class, so Cass can't predict where I'll be. She gives me a list of campus security phone numbers and emergency contacts. She says I should tell my professors what's happening so they're aware. She helps me identify safe people I can contact in different campus buildings if I need help. She emphasizes that stalking usually gets worse when victims try to set boundaries. She says Cass might escalate further now that police are involved. This scares me, but Violet says it's important to be prepared. She schedules weekly appointments with me and gives me her emergency contact information. She says I can call anytime if I feel unsafe. After meeting with Violet, I go to the legal aid office on campus. A woman named Michaela Harden meets with me in a small conference room. She's a lawyer who offers free help to students dealing with harassment. I show her all my documentation, and she goes through everything carefully. She takes notes and asks specific questions about dates and times. She says I have a strong case for a civil restraining order. She explains the process will take several weeks. First, we file for a temporary order. Then there's a court hearing where a judge decides if it becomes permanent. Michaela explains that a restraining order won't force Cass out of our apartment right away. The lease makes that complicated. But the order will legally prohibit Cass from contacting me or coming near me. She warns me that many stalkers violate restraining orders. She says I need to keep documenting everything and report every violation. She says each violation can result in criminal charges. Michaela helps me fill out the paperwork right there. She explains every section and makes sure I include all the important details. She says we'll file this tomorrow and Cass will be served with the temporary order within a few days. That evening, Jess comes to my room and closes the door. She looks tired and scared. She says she can't live here anymore. She's breaking her lease early and moving in with her girlfriend off campus. She feels guilty leaving me, but she doesn't feel safe with Cass here. I tell her I understand completely. I'm actually relieved she's getting out. She shouldn't have to deal with this. Jess says she'll still be around and we can meet for coffee anytime. She promises to testify if I need her for the restraining order hearing. She starts packing that night. 3 days later, I'm in class when my phone buzzes. It's a text from Michaela saying Cass has been served with the temporary restraining order. My stomach drops. I know Cass is going to be furious. The court date for the permanent order is set for 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks where I have to face Cass in court and explain everything in front of a judge. 2 weeks of waiting and worrying about what Cass might do next. I leave class early and go back to my apartment. Jess is already gone. Her room is empty. It's just me and Cass now in this apartment, and Cass legally can't come near me, but we share walls and a kitchen. I lock myself in my room and try to study, but I can't focus. I keep thinking about the court date and having to see Cass there, having to tell a judge about the lingerie incident and the stalking and everything else. My phone buzzes again. It's Will asking if I'm okay. I tell him about the restraining order and he says he's proud of me. He wishes he could be here, but he has exams he can't miss. We video call that night and just seeing his face makes me feel a little better. But I'm still scared. 2 weeks feels like forever. The next day, I wake up to notifications flooding my phone. My stomach drops when I open social media and see Cass has posted 3 times since last night. Nothing direct, just vague messages about fake friends and people who betray you when you need them most. She writes about how some people can't handle the truth and turn everyone against you instead of looking at their own problems. She posts a quote about loyalty and how real friends stick together through everything. Everyone who knows us will understand exactly who she's talking about. My hands shake as I scroll through the comments and see people asking if she's okay, offering support, telling her they're here for her. She's already started building her version of events where she's the victim. I put my phone down and try to focus on getting ready for class, but my mind keeps spinning. Cass is telling people her story right now, twisting everything to make herself look like the wronged party. I wonder how many people will believe her before they hear my side. By lunchtime, 3 different people have reached out asking what's going on with me and Cass. One girl from my biology class sends a long text saying Cass told her I got jealous and controlling about her friendship with Will. Another acquaintance messages asking if it's true that I'm trying to get Cass kicked out over nothing. Someone else heard I filed false reports to get attention. I feel sick reading these messages because Cass has been busy spreading her lies and some people are buying it completely. I spend an hour writing responses, explaining the real situation with evidence and screenshots. Some people apologize immediately when they see proof of what actually happened. Others go quiet and don't respond at all, which makes me wonder if they believe Cass more than me. My close friends rally around me after I show them everything, and that helps. But I still feel isolated knowing there are people out there who think I'm the crazy one. Jess texts me that Cass has been posting in group chats too, playing the victim and making it sound like I overreacted to harmless jokes. The frustration builds in my chest because no matter what evidence I show, some people will always believe Cass's version. That night, Will calls me and his voice sounds different. Strained and tight in a way I haven't heard before. He tells me he had a panic attack during his economics lecture today because someone walked past who looked like Cass from behind. He couldn't breathe and had to leave the classroom, and now his professor thinks he's flaking on important material. His grades are dropping because he can't focus on studying when he's constantly worried about Cass showing up again. We talk for 2 hours, and I try to reassure him that the restraining order will help, that she can't come near him legally now, but I can hear the fear in his voice that won't go away. He says he checks the parking lot before leaving his dorm and walks different routes to class each day. He's barely sleeping because he keeps thinking he hears someone outside his door. The distance between us feels harder now, like we're both drowning separately instead of holding each other up. I hate what Cass has done to him, to us, to our relationship that was good and healthy before she decided Will belonged to her too. We promise to talk every night and stay strong, but after we hang up, I cry because I don't know how much more stress our relationship can take. 1 week before the court date, I come home from my afternoon class and immediately notice something wrong. My bedroom door is open, not just unlocked but actually open, and I know I locked it this morning with my key. My heart starts racing as I step inside and see my room has been completely torn apart. Dresser drawers pulled out with clothes scattered everywhere, my desk ransacked with papers all over the floor, my closet emptied with hangers on the ground. I rush to my desk and realize my laptop charger is gone, then check my jewelry box and find my grandmother's necklace missing along with 2 rings Will gave me. Photos are missing from my wall, ones of me and Will that I had pinned up. On my bed sits a note written in Cass's handwriting that makes my blood run cold. You can't keep what's meant to be shared. My hands shake as I take photos of everything with my phone, documenting the destruction and the note before I touch anything else. This is worse than before because Cass broke through my lock somehow, violated my space completely, and took things that matter to me personally. The message is clear and threatening, and I know this crosses a major line legally. I call the police immediately and ask specifically for Officer O'Brien since he knows our case. He arrives within 20 minutes and I show him everything, my voice shaking as I explain what's missing and what the note says. He walks through my room slowly, taking photos from multiple angles and writing detailed notes about each item that was taken or damaged. He examines my door lock and points out scratches around the keyhole where Cass must have picked it or forced it somehow. He bags the note as evidence and labels it carefully, explaining that this is a clear and serious violation of the temporary restraining order. He asks if I have receipts or photos of the stolen jewelry, and I show him pictures on my phone where I'm wearing my grandmother's necklace. He documents the laptop charger model and serial number from my purchase records. The whole process takes over an hour, and Officer O'Brien stays patient and thorough, making sure every detail is recorded properly. He tells me this violation, combined with the burglary charges, significantly strengthens my case for the permanent restraining order. He says Cass will face criminal charges for this, not just a civil order violation but actual crimes. Officer O'Brien stays at my apartment and we wait for Cass to return. He positions himself in the living room where he can see the front door clearly. Around 6:30 that evening, I hear keys in the lock and my whole body tenses. Cass walks in carrying shopping bags and her face goes from casual to shocked when she sees Officer O'Brien standing there. He identifies himself and tells her she's under arrest for violating the restraining order and for burglary. Cass's eyes go wide and she starts backing toward the door, but Officer O'Brien moves quickly and professionally. He asks her to turn around and put her hands behind her back. That's when Cass loses it completely and starts screaming at me. She yells that I ruined her life, that I'm a selfish, horrible person who can't share anything, that Will would have chosen her if I hadn't poisoned everyone against her. She screams that she'll never forgive me, that I destroyed everything, that this is all my fault. Officer O'Brien handcuffs her while she's shouting and she's crying now too, mascara running down her face as he reads her rights. Other officers arrive to assist and they search Cass's room with her permission, finding my laptop charger and some of the photos she took from my wall. They bag everything as evidence while Cass keeps crying and yelling about how unfair this is. Watching her get let out in handcuffs should feel like relief. But instead, I just feel exhausted and sad that it came to this. The next day, I get a call from Michaela telling me Cass posted bail already. My stomach sinks because I hoped she'd stay in jail at least until the court hearing, but apparently her parents paid to get her out. Michaela explains that the judge modified the restraining order, though, adding specific terms that prohibit Cass from returning to our apartment at all. Cass can't come back to get her things without police supervision, and she has to arrange that through proper legal channels. Michaela says this is actually good for me because it means I won't have to see Cass around the apartment anymore, at least not without officers present. She warns me that Cass might try to retaliate in other ways since she's out on bail, so I need to stay alert and keep documenting everything. I feel some relief knowing Cass legally cannot come back here freely, but I'm also anxious about what she might do next. People who violate restraining orders once often do it again, and Cass has already shown she doesn't care about legal consequences when she wants something. I meet with Roger Bartlett, my landlord, at his office the next morning to discuss my options. He's a middle-aged man with kind eyes who listens carefully as I explain everything that's happened. I show him the police reports, the restraining order paperwork, and photos of my ransacked room. He shakes his head and says he had no idea the situation had gotten this serious. I ask if there's any way to break my lease early, or have Cass removed permanently from the apartment. Roger reviews the lease carefully, and explains that normally breaking a lease costs 2 months' rent as penalty, but given the criminal charges and restraining order, he's willing to make an exception. He says he can let me out of the lease early without any penalty, because this situation involves my safety and documented criminal behavior. He'll work on getting Cass's name removed from the lease entirely since she's legally prohibited from being there anyway. I feel tears of relief because this means I can actually leave and find somewhere safe. Roger is sympathetic and understanding, saying he has a daughter in college and would want someone to help her if she was in this situation. He gives me 30 days to find a new place and move out, and he'll handle all the paperwork to make it official. That afternoon, I call my sister Heidi and tell her about Roger's offer to let me break the lease. She immediately says she'll help me apartment hunt this weekend. By Saturday, we're driving around looking at different places near campus. Most are too expensive for me to afford alone since I was splitting rent 3 ways before. Heidi finds a small studio apartment just 15 minutes from campus that's available immediately. It's tiny, just 1 room with a bathroom and kitchenette, but it has good locks, and the building requires keycard access. The rent is almost double what I was paying before, and I start to panic about how I'll afford it. Heidi calls our parents right there and explains the situation. Within an hour, my mom calls back and says they'll help cover the rent difference each month because my safety is more important than money. She sounds scared and angry about everything that happened, but mostly she just wants me somewhere secure. I cry on the phone thanking her because I didn't want to ask for money, but I also desperately need to get away from that apartment. We put down a deposit that same day, and the landlord says I can move in next weekend. Having a concrete plan and a safe place to go makes me feel like I can finally breathe again. The court hearing for the permanent restraining order happens 2 weeks after I filed, exactly on schedule. I wake up that morning feeling sick with nerves because I have to testify about everything in front of a judge. Michaela meets me at the courthouse and walks me through what to expect. We sit in the hallway outside the courtroom waiting for our case to be called, and my hands won't stop shaking. When they finally call us in, I see Cass sitting at a table with her lawyer, a sharp-looking woman in an expensive suit. Cass won't look at me directly, but I can see her jaw clenched tight. The judge is an older woman who looks stern but fair. Michaela presents our evidence first, walking through the timeline of Cass's behavior with photos, text messages, police reports, and witness statements. I have to take the stand and testify about the lingerie incident, about coming home to find my room ransacked, about the fake text Cass sent from my phone. My voice shakes, but I get through it, answering the judge's questions as clearly as I can. Cass's lawyer tries to make it sound like misunderstandings, like Cass was just a concerned friend who got caught up in drama. She suggests I overreacted to normal roommate conflicts, and that Cass's mental health struggles make her a victim too. But the evidence is too strong, the police report's too detailed, the pattern too clear. Officer O'Brien testifies about the break-in and arrest, and his professional account carries weight. The judge reviews everything carefully, asking pointed questions that Cass's lawyer struggles to answer convincingly. The judge leans back in her chair and reviews the final documents one more time before speaking. She looks directly at Cass and then at me, her expression serious and measured. She announces that based on the evidence presented, including multiple police reports, witness testimony, and documented violations of boundaries, she's granting a permanent restraining order valid for 3 years. Cass must stay at least 500 feet away from me at all times. She must stay away from Will. She must stay away from both our campuses and any place she knows we frequent regularly. The judge adds that any violation will result in immediate arrest and criminal charges. I feel my whole body relax for the first time in weeks, like I've been holding my breath underwater and finally broke the surface. But when I glance over at Cass, she's staring at me with an expression I've never seen before. Pure hatred. Her eyes are cold and focused, and even though the judge is still talking, Cass doesn't look away from me. It's like she's trying to memorize my face or send me some kind of message. I feel relieved that the order is in place, but I also feel scared because that look tells me this isn't over in her mind. Michaela touches my arm gently and whispers that we should leave through the side exit to avoid any confrontation in the hallway. We gather our papers and walk out while Cass is still sitting with her lawyer. I hear her say something sharp but can't make out the words. The following weekend, Heidi drives up early Saturday morning with her truck packed with boxes and cleaning supplies. Jess meets us at my new studio apartment with her girlfriend, and Will makes the 2-hour drive down to help me move. It takes most of the day to get my stuff out of the old apartment. Cass isn't there, which I'm grateful for, but I can tell she's been in my room again because things are moved around. A few items are missing, small things like a hair clip and a photo from my desk. I don't even care anymore. I just want to get out. We load everything into the truck and Heidi's car, making 2 trips to bring it all to the studio. The new place is tiny compared to what I'm used to. The kitchen is basically a counter with a mini fridge and a 2-burner stove. The bathroom is so small I can touch both walls at once, but it has good locks on the door and windows. The building requires a key card to get in. The landlord installed a deadbolt and a chain lock at my request. When we finish unpacking the last box and setting up my bed, I sit down on the floor and just breathe. Will sits next to me and puts his arm around my shoulders. This is the first time in months that I feel like I can actually breathe deeply without worrying about who might walk through my door. Having my own space with locks only I control feels like the first real safety I've had since this whole thing started. Jess orders pizza for everyone and we eat sitting on the floor because I don't have furniture yet. Heidi promises to help me find some cheap stuff at thrift stores next weekend. For now, I have a bed, my clothes, and my privacy. That's enough. The first month in the new apartment is mostly peaceful, but Cass violates the restraining order twice. The first time happens during my Tuesday morning class. I'm walking across campus to the science building when I see her standing near the bike racks about 40 feet away. She's just standing there, watching me. I freeze for a second, then pull out my phone and take a photo of her. She sees me do it and walks away quickly, but I report it to campus police immediately. Officer O'Brien takes my statement and confirms that 40 feet is definitely within the 500-foot boundary. He says he'll file a report and contact Cass's probation officer. The second violation happens 2 weeks later through social media. I get a friend request from an account I don't recognize, and when I click on the profile, it's clearly fake. The account was created 3 days ago and has no posts, but the profile picture is a photo of Will that I know Cass took from my laptop. The account sends me a message that just says, "Thinking of you both." I screenshot everything before blocking the account and send it all to Officer O'Brien. He forwards it to Cass's lawyer with a warning that continued violations could result in jail time instead of just probation. Michaela tells me that judges take restraining order violations seriously, especially when there's a clear pattern. Each violation I document makes the case stronger if we need to go back to court. Will and I start doing video calls 3 or 4 times a week now that he's too nervous to visit my new place. He worries that Cass is watching my apartment and will follow him if he comes to see me. I understand his fear because I have the same worries, but the distance is hard. We used to spend whole weekends together, and now we're back to just seeing each other through a screen. Our calls are different from they used to be, though. We talk about real things now, about how scared we both are and what we need from each other. Will admits that Cass showing up at his dorm was the most frightened he's ever been, and he's still having trouble sleeping sometimes. I tell him about the therapy sessions I'm doing and how Violet is helping me process everything. We make plans for what we'll do when things feel safer, places we want to visit together, normal couple stuff we couldn't focus on before. The distance is frustrating, but we're communicating better than we ever did when he was visiting regularly. We're being honest about our fears instead of trying to act like everything is fine. That honesty makes me feel closer to him even though we're 2 hours apart. I continue seeing Violet every week for therapy sessions focused on processing the trauma of being stalked. She has me work through exercises about recognizing that what happened wasn't my fault, that I couldn't have predicted how far Cass would escalate her behavior. I keep blaming myself for not setting boundaries sooner, for not taking the early warning signs seriously, for being too nice and letting Cass think we were closer than we were. Violet explains that stalkers are skilled at testing boundaries gradually, at making their victims doubt their own perceptions. She says the guilt I feel is normal, but misplaced. I couldn't have known that a roommate saying "our boyfriend" as a joke would turn into breaking into my room and stealing my identity. The anger is harder to work through than the guilt. I'm furious at Cass for taking something good in my life and twisting it into fear. I'm angry that she made Will scared to visit me. I'm angry that she invaded my privacy so completely, reading my messages and emails and going through my personal photos. Violet helps me understand that anger is healthy and appropriate, that I have every right to be angry about what was done to me. She teaches me ways to process the anger without letting it consume me or make me feel powerless. The sessions are exhausting but helpful. I leave each one feeling a little bit lighter, a little bit more in control of my own story. 3 months after the restraining order is granted, I get a call from Michaela with news about Cass's criminal case. The charges for violating the restraining order and the burglary of my room have been resolved through a plea deal. Cass accepted an agreement where she gets probation instead of jail time, but the conditions are strict. She has to attend mandatory mental health treatment twice a week with a therapist who specializes in obsessive behaviors. She has to meet with her probation officer every 2 weeks and prove she's complying with treatment. Most importantly, she agreed to transfer to a different university next semester. Michaela explains that the prosecutor pushed for the transfer requirement because having Cass on the same campus as me would make it too easy for her to violate the restraining order again, even accidentally. The plea deal means I don't have to testify in a criminal trial, which is a relief because I was dreading having to face Cass in court again. Michaela warns me that plea deals don't mean the person has accepted responsibility or changed their thinking. Cass might have agreed to these terms just to avoid jail, not because she understands what she did wrong. I need to stay vigilant and keep documenting anything suspicious. The restraining order is still in effect regardless of the plea deal, and any violation still has serious consequences. Knowing that Cass will be on a different campus starting next semester brings relief so huge I almost cry when Michaela tells me. I won't have to worry about running into her between classes or seeing her at campus events. I won't have to check over my shoulder constantly or take different routes to avoid places she might be. Violet warns me in our next therapy session that stalking victims often experience something called hypervigilance, even after the threat is gone. She explains that my brain has been in constant alert mode for months, always scanning for danger, always preparing for the next violation or confrontation. That pattern doesn't just switch off immediately when the threat is removed. I notice she's right. I still check over my shoulder multiple times when I'm walking to class. I still feel my heart rate spike when I see someone with the same build or hair color as Cass. Last week, I saw a girl wearing a jacket similar to one Cass used to wear, and I had a full panic response before I realized it wasn't her. My body is still reacting like I'm in danger, even though logically I know Cass will be hours away soon. Violet says this is normal and will fade with time and continued therapy. She teaches me grounding techniques to use when I feel the panic starting, ways to remind myself that I'm safe now and the threat has passed. We'll finally feel safe enough to visit my new apartment for a weekend in early spring. It's the first time we've been together in person without fear or tension hanging over us in months. We don't do anything special. We cook breakfast together in my tiny kitchen and watch movies on my laptop. We take a walk around my neighborhood without worrying about someone following us or showing up uninvited. We talk about his graduate school applications and my plans for next semester. We talk about visiting his family over summer break and maybe taking a short trip somewhere neither of us has been before. Normal couple conversations about a future that feels possible again. Being physically close to him without the constant anxiety is strange at first. I realize how much tension I'd been carrying, how much I'd been bracing myself for something bad to happen every time we were together. Will admits he feels the same way, that he's been waiting for Cass to appear around every corner. But she doesn't appear. Nobody bangs on my door or sends weird messages. We spend the weekend reconnecting and remembering why we work as a couple. When Will leaves Sunday evening, I feel sad but not scared. We have plans for him to visit again in 2 weeks. We're building something real again without Cass's shadow over everything. Jess and I meet for coffee regularly now, usually once a week at a place halfway between our apartments. She apologizes again for not speaking up sooner about Cass's behavior, for not warning me how serious it was getting. I tell her the same thing I've told her before, that I don't blame her. I missed the signs too. I lived with Cass and saw her every day, and I still didn't recognize how dangerous her obsession was becoming until it was already out of control. Jess shares that she's been having some anxiety since everything happened, that she feels guilty for not protecting me better as a friend. I remind her that she did help. She documented Cass's behavior. She came with me to Will's campus. She testified at the restraining order hearing. She helped me move. Those actions mattered. We talk about how we both learned the same hard lesson, that you can't always tell who's going to become dangerous just by looking at them. Cass seemed normal at first, a little intense after her breakup, but not scary. The escalation was so gradual that we both normalized behaviors that should have alarmed us. We bond over our shared experience of surviving something frightening and coming out the other side. Jess is one of the few people who truly understands what those months were like, because she witnessed it firsthand. I join a campus support group for students who've experienced stalking or harassment. The group meets every other week in a private room at the counseling center. There are usually 6 or 7 people there, mostly women but a couple of men too. Hearing others' stories helps me feel less alone in what I went through. Several people share that their stalkers also seemed normal at first. One girl talks about an ex-boyfriend who seemed hurt but accepting when they broke up, then gradually started showing up everywhere she went. A guy describes a classmate who became obsessed after they worked on one group project together. The gradual escalation made them doubt their own perceptions. They wondered if they were overreacting or being paranoid. They tried to be nice and give the person the benefit of the doubt. Everyone in the group understands that specific guilt, that feeling of I should have known sooner, or I should have been more firm about boundaries earlier. The group facilitator reminds us that stalkers are skilled manipulators who test boundaries incrementally. They make their victims question reality and doubt their own instincts. Recognizing the patterns after the fact doesn't mean we failed to protect ourselves. It means we're learning and healing. Listening to others describe their experiences and recovery gives me hope that I'll eventually feel normal again. that the hypervigilance and fear will continue to fade until they're just memories instead of constant companions. I start turning in assignments on time again, checking them twice before submitting because I'm not distracted by wondering if Cass is reading my emails or following my location. My biology professor accepts my late lab reports without penalty after I explained the situation to her earlier in the semester, and I managed to pull my grade up from a C to a B by finals week. The chemistry midterm I thought I'd failed completely actually comes back with a passing score, and my advisor tells me I'm back on track for my degree requirements. I can sit in the library now without constantly watching the door or checking my phone every 5 minutes to see if Cass has somehow bypassed my new security settings. My hands don't shake when I open my laptop anymore, and I've stopped having nightmares about finding her in my room wearing my clothes or touching my things. Will surprises me 3 weeks before our anniversary by booking a hotel in a city neither of us has ever visited, somewhere 4 hours away where nobody knows us, and Cass definitely won't appear. We drive there on a Friday afternoon with the windows down and music playing, and for the first time in months, I feel like a normal college student on a normal trip with her boyfriend. The hotel room has a view of the downtown area, and we spend the evening walking around looking at shops and restaurants without me checking over my shoulder every few minutes. We eat dinner at a small Italian place where the waiter doesn't ask why I keep my phone face down on the table, or why I tense up when someone walks past our booth. That night in the hotel room, Will holds me, and we talk about how close we came to breaking up, how Cass almost succeeded in destroying what we built together. He tells me he's proud of how I handled everything, getting the restraining order and moving out and not giving up even when it felt impossible. I tell him I'm sorry he had to experience any of it, that he got pulled into my roommate's obsession and felt unsafe in his own dorm. We promise each other that we won't let fear control our decisions anymore, that we'll trust our relationship is strong enough to handle whatever comes next. I'm standing in line at the campus coffee shop when I overhear 2 girls talking about someone who got arrested for stalking last semester, and my stomach drops until I realize they're not talking about my situation. Later that week, Jess texts me that she heard through a mutual friend that Cass is going to therapy twice a week as part of her probation requirements and enrolled at a different university 3 hours away for the spring semester. The news makes me feel strange, like I should be happy she's getting help, but also worried that therapy won't fix whatever made her obsess over Will in the first place. I maintain all my security measures anyway, keeping my location sharing turned off except for a few trusted people, and checking my bedroom door lock every night before bed. Violet reminds me during our session that Cass's recovery isn't my responsibility, that I can hope she gets better while still protecting myself and maintaining firm boundaries. Heidi calls me on a Tuesday afternoon sounding excited and a little emotional, telling me she finished her psychology degree and got accepted into a specialized program for trauma therapy. She says helping me through the stalking situation made her realize she wants to work with people who've experienced similar violations of safety and trust, that watching me navigate the legal system and recovery process showed her how much people need advocates who understand. I feel proud that something positive came from everything that happened, even though I wouldn't wish that experience on anyone. Heidi tells me I was braver than I thought I was, that most people don't recognize stalking behavior until it's already dangerous, and I managed to take action before Cass could escalate further. We talk about how she'll start her graduate program in the fall, and maybe I can help her with research projects about stalking prevention and victim support. 6 months after Cass moved to her new university, I walk across campus to my morning class without checking behind me every few steps or scanning crowds for her face. The constant tension in my shoulders has faded, and I don't jump anymore when someone approaches me from behind in the library or dining hall. I still see Violet every other week because recovery isn't linear, and some days I still feel anxious in situations that remind me of when Cass was following me everywhere. But most days now I feel normal, like a regular student worried about regular things like exams and assignments, instead of wondering if my former roommate is watching my apartment or tracking my location. I can enjoy coffee with friends without positioning myself to see all the exits, and I don't feel the need to document every interaction in case I need evidence later. Will calls me with news that makes me actually scream with excitement in the middle of the student center. He got accepted to a graduate program at a university only 30 minutes from mine, which means he'll be moving closer next fall, and we can finally have regular dates without the 2-hour drive between us. We video call that night and talk about apartment hunting, and how strange it will be to see each other multiple times a week instead of once every few weeks. He tells me he's excited to build a future together that isn't defined by what happened with Cass, where we can just be a normal couple doing normal things. I tell him I want to cook dinner for him in my apartment without fear of someone breaking in, to go on walks without checking if we're being followed, to exist together without trauma hanging over everything we do. I'm able to look back now and see how much I've changed since that first day I dismissed Cass calling Will, our boyfriend, as a harmless joke. I learned that being kind and accommodating doesn't mean accepting behavior that makes me uncomfortable, that setting boundaries isn't mean or dramatic but necessary for my own safety. I learned to advocate for myself even when institutions like campus security initially dismissed my concerns, to document everything and build a case until people took me seriously. I learned that protecting myself isn't selfish, that I don't owe anyone access to my space or my relationship just because we share an apartment or because they're going through a hard time. I learned to trust my instincts when something feels wrong instead of talking myself out of my own discomfort because I don't want to cause conflict. My studio apartment has become exactly what I needed, a space where I control who enters and when, where every item belongs to me and hasn't been touched or borrowed or stolen by someone else. I decorated it with posters and plants and photos of people I trust, and I installed a chain lock that makes me feel secure when I'm home alone at night. Will visits on weekends now, and we cook together in my tiny kitchen, and I don't have to worry about someone walking in without knocking or listening outside my door. Jess comes over for movie nights, and we laugh about normal things instead of whispering about concerning behavior or planning safety strategies. My relationship with Will is stronger than it was before everything happened with Cass, because we learned to communicate about fear and boundaries and trust, because we chose each other even when it would have been easier to walk away. I've built a support system of people who respect my space and my choices, who understand that safety isn't paranoia and boundaries aren't punishment. I'm genuinely happy now in a way I wasn't sure I'd feel again 6 months ago, and I'm proud of myself for getting here.